What if agriculture is no longer what used to be when the CAP was developed? If we agree that agriculture in Europe is no longer what it used to be in the 50s and the 60s, then it is time to refresh the master narratives used to describe its role in society. This can be done by exposing the presence of three elephants in the room. So these are the three presentations of this series. Finally, we are getting into the third elephant in the room, and that also is pretty much important, and is about the concept of food system, in the sense that at the moment we should talk of the food system and not of agricultural production, because food production is no longer a relevant component of the modern food systems, neither in economic or in energy terms. If you're comparing a developed country to developing countries, you will get that in pre-industrial society, more or less the consumption, these are approximated value in grain per capita equivalent, was 250 kilos, whereas in developed country like in the United States, you get 1,000 kilos. And then what is the issue here? That in reality, in the diet, we are even consuming less, because what we are doing now is consuming indirectly in the food system. So an enormous amount of grains are going into the feed for animals. Then you go in alcoholic beverage. And alcoholic beverage more or less is like the direct consumption, and for industrial product. What does it mean? That this implies that basically the money and the energy going to agriculture is 20% of the total. It's remarkable that the fraction is the same for money and energy, whereas 80% goes to the post-harvest activity. So you see that the agricultural production is just a small part of the story. And then if you are looking at the difference between the energy used in the food system and the energy delivered to people, you see the agriculture is consuming already more than the energy that is provided. And basically the indirect inputs, fertilizer, are more than the direct. This would be the fuel consumed by the tractor. But you can see that retail packaging, processing, and transportation is much more, and the preparation and storage and commercial food service is much more. So basically, you can see that the old food system is consuming 7.3 joule of fossil energy per joule of food delivered. These are data from the States in 1995. Probably the situation could be even worse now because of the more fancy packages and because of an increase in fresh vegetable and fruit into the diet. We will discuss this later on. So when feeding cities, the problem is not producing enough food. The problem is distributing the food with a high convenience. So if you're looking at the total expenditure in a society, either when assessed in money or in energy, you can see that 90% of the money and 90% of the energy is not related to food production or consumption. You see again, this is the post-harvest and the harvest. So you can see that basically it's getting less and less relevant what is happening in agriculture from an economic perspective. As a matter of fact, you can see that looking at the difference between the relative expenditure as fraction of the income and the absolute expenditure in terms of money, in developed countries we are spending much more for our food, but in relative to the total income, it is pretty much negligible, whereas in poor countries they are spending much less, like 1/10 in Pakistan and in Switzerland, but you see is 5 times more, or 4.5 times more in terms of the income fraction. So what is the point about this? That basically what we are selling now, when we're talking about food product, it is not nutrients, but it's convenience. The value of food products is given by their convenience. The more you are processing and making available food to the consumer, the more is higher the price, the higher is the price of the unit of nutrient. So if we're looking, you remember before, what are the post-harvest sources of cost? This is 80% of the energy expenditure, is retail, packaging, processing, transportation, home preparation, commercial food services. And let's see what happens if we are using fresh vegetable and fruits into this system. So fresh vegetable contains 70–95% of water. So basically, all these costs are to bring around water. They are very susceptible to mechanical injury. They require sophisticated packaging and careful handling and transport. They can be damaged when exposed to extreme temperature. So you have to control environments, or refreshing, refrigerated, whatever, or frozen, susceptible to contaminants. So you have to carefully washing procedure, or having throwaway packaging to avoid cross-contamination. They are susceptible to rapid product deterioration. So basically, there are a lot of losses. In the supermarket, they are throwing away fresh vegetable and fruit that do not look good. And then it is difficult to define what are the losses with law because of all these causes. But the losses here are very relevant because they are multiplying the cost per unit of net supply. So what is the point here? The handling fresh vegetable in urban system is one of the most energy intensive activity. It is sure that the massive move to a vegetarian diet will reduce the energy consumption. Should we try to understand better the issue before setting policy and targets? Let's imagine that if you are eating asparagus delivered through refrigerated cargoes from Peru, are you helping the planet better than if you are eating livestock, organic livestock that have been delivered using a very old truck like the truck of John Tarrant? Are we capable of comparing in a minimum way the pros and cons of these two options? Is a vegetarian eating fresh asparagus in Brussels or a fresh clean salad stored in a safe plastic package saving the planet? This is a picture of the beet eater, and then basically this is a type of diet that would significantly reduce our pressure on the planet. But when we are dealing with modern vegetarians, are we dealing with someone that having this type of diet? Conclusion. Making EU agriculture more sustainable may require a radical change in social practice and not only technological innovation, new business models, or more regulation or economic incentives. European agriculture is a functional component of a globalized food system now. So this change has provided some advantage in terms of economic revenue from agribusiness, but it entails several concerns about food security, EU sovereignty, the survival of farmers, an ethical issue to the fact that we are externalizing environmental and social pressure to other socio-ecological systems. Finally, discussion over agricultural policy should be based on a more holistic perspective of the food system, farm to fork, and address the implication of the nexus between energy, water, food, biodiversity. We can no longer deal only or consider only agriculture when discussing about agricultural policy. Making the right choice requires wisdom, vision, values, and above all, that we care for the farmers, the environment, our health, our culture, our identity, the future of our children. So a boost in productivity or higher return on the investment in agricultural production within the business as usual narrative of agricultural progress will simply not do it.